Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotarita Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotarita Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. So, let's see. On this 26th day of March, 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 2, Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 29 on page 96. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschadenam Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah Ascharyavat chainamanyak shrinoti Shutvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit. Ascharyavat pashyati kascharenam. Ascharyavat vadati taiva chanya. Ascharyavat chainam yakshanoti. Shutvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit. Ascharyavat pashyati kascharenam. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah. Ascharyavat chainam yakshanoti. Shutvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit. Okay, who wants to try it first? You can do. Ascharyavat pashyati kascharenam. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah. Ascharyavat chainam yakshanoti. Shutvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit. Okay, you're next. No? Okay. Anyone else want to try? Okay, you go ahead, Ami. Ascharyavat pashyati kascharenam. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah. Ascharyavat chainam yakshanoti. Shutvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit. Page 96. Bhakta Chad, you there?
Acharyavat pashyati kaschrenam.
Ascharyavat pashyati kascharenam.
Acharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha.
Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah.
Acharyavat chainam anyashranoti.
Ascharyavat chainam yakshanoti.
Shruvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit.
Shutvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit. And Denali. You see it? 29. Ascharyavat pashyati kascharenam. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah. Ascharyavat chainam yakshanoti. Shutvapyenam veda na chaiva kaschit. Anyone else out there? Okay. Ascharyavat, as amazing, pashyati, sees, kaschit, someone, enam, this soul. Ascharyavat, as amazing, vadati, speaks of, tata, thus, eva, certainly. Cha, also. Anyaha, another, ascharyavat, similarly amazing. Cha, also, enam, this soul. Anyaha, another, shrinoti, hears of, shutva, having heard, api, even, enam, this soul. Veda knows, never. Cha, and eva, certainly. Kaschit, someone. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Purport. Since the Gita Upanishad is fully based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to find this parallel passage in the Katha Upanishad 127. Shavanayapi bahubhi yo nalabhya shinvanto pi bahuvo yam navidyuhu ascharyo bhakta kushalo syalabdha ascharyo gyata kushalanashishtaha. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful, either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, or deluded by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matters for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps they have no idea that one must think of the soul and thus make a solution to the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes, owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the supersoul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the supersoul, the atomic soul, their respective functions and relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul, and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if, somehow or other, one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee, and by no other way. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will find the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami in the latter part of the Madhya Lila. And it's the most extensive description of his teachings. He also has teachings to Rupa Goswami, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Roy. But there's 4 or 5 chapters of teachings to Sanatana Goswami. And those chapters are divided, the teachings are divided into these 3 aspects, which are important for us to know if we want to really understand the process of bhakti. And they're described in Sanskrit as Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. Some of you are familiar with these terms. So what we're learning here, especially in this purport, Prabhupada is talking about Sambandha, about how rare it is for someone to really understand the detail of this Sambandha. Now, Sambandha means relationship, basically. And in our parlance, what it indicates is we have to understand in truth what this world is, what God is, who created it, and what we are, and how we relate to it, you see, and how we relate to God, all those different relationships. And until we have a firm understanding of that and have faith in the knowledge of that, we really can't practice devotional service with determination, because it's all based on that Sambandha. And it's a very rare person, as Prabhupada is saying again and again in this purport, who can even understand the nature of the soul, what to speak of the nature of God and the different energies and so forth. But that is a foundational understanding for spiritual life. So far, Krishna has been talking about the nature of the soul, how it's indestructible, how never born, never dies, how each one of us is a soul, a particle of spirit, Atma, and that we're part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit. This is the important relationship we have. We have the qualities of Krishna, but in minute degree. So, but by nature, we're the same, but it's not just us. Every soul has those qualities. Now, Krishna Maharaj says the famous quality of Sat Chit Ananda. And in our original Swarup, I think you may remember that word, Swarup means our actual form and actual nature, we'll also have that quality, because we'll be in our, as Prabhupada would say, constitutional position. And really, it's synonymous with being situated in our Sanatan Dharma, our eternal function as servants of the Lord, but very blissful in that service. So here, Krishna is describing how rare it is for someone to really understand the soul in this world. It seems fantastical, you know? The whole idea of karma and reincarnation, I think it's rejected because it would really put a real crimp in this freewheeling, enjoying spirit, right? If you know that, my goodness, if I do, you know, this kind of activity, and if I just let my senses go wild, and I'm creating a very dark future for myself, then where's your enjoying spirit? You have to disbelieve that entirely, you know? I remember we used to have, when I was growing up, you'd have these shirts, or even today, right? What is it? YOLO. That's it. You know what YOLO is? You only live once. And the implication is, therefore, come to the party. Come on, let's go to the beach to get drunk, you know? Don't waste time. You only live once. But if you don't only live once, if whatever you do today is going to be kept in a record, and some of the things you do can cause a lot of suffering, then it's going to completely crimp your enjoying spirit, you see? So better you have to get this idea, you only live once, you know? So that's the existentialism, you know, you live in the moment, you know? But that's the first misconception Krishna is knocking on in this chapter. No, you don't only live once. You're eternal. You never were in existence. But you keep changing your bodily construction, because this reflects, the body you have now reflects your previous activities and consciousness. And your next body will reflect the present consciousness that you have. Now, even in just one lifetime, we can see some of that in action. Dutiful parents, you know, and a dutiful society sees to the education of the children. Otherwise, they'll grow up, but they'll be more or less animals. You know, this is probably the epitome of Varna Sankara, you know. So there has to be an education. And, you know, children, as Prabhupada have said about himself, he didn't want to go to school at all, you know. And his father was always pampering him, you know. And if it wasn't for his mother, he would have never gone to school. Because, you know, your kids, you're 4, you're 5, you want to play all day, you know, like that. So, but you still have to be, you know, dragged to school, okay. And after a while, you get interested in it. You know, you change your content. No, now you can read, you can do things, you know, like. So even in this material life, we see the understanding of being conscious of the long term and what the implications of your activities now will be on that long term. Prabhupada introduced this you know, there's so many different mottos or little statements, like punok punascharvita charvananam. You know, you've heard that before, right? Again and again, chewing the chewed. You know, this is material life, you know. Or just the different pairing of Haribol Nimai. By the way, you may not know that Nimai is responsible for building these doors. He has a whole construction company. He grew up in the movement. He's a devotee. And he plays a mean drum. He played louder than anyone else I've ever seen. But he's also very good at it. So anyway, then you have these two concepts, which we can understand them even on the material level, but on the spiritual level, they're very impactful. Shreyas and prayas, or prayas and shreyas. Prayas is the immediate good, something that you can you know, I mean, on a child's level, you can see like immediate, you know, fun, playing, or being dragged to school, you know, learning how to, you know, for your future life. So Shreyas is the ultimate good, and prayas is immediate sense pleasure. Now, you can think of that in terms of the modes of nature, because the mode of passion and ignorance is like, what can I get now? What's the profit I can get now, you know? But Shreyas is the long-term benefit. which can be much greater and much more impactful. And in fact, you can see that people who are simply interested in immediate pleasure, they're leading almost animalistic lives. And you can develop a very low and even criminal consciousness with that. You know, what's in it for me? You know what I mean? But we understand a good person is someone who is not just interested in his own benefit, but interested in the benefit of others, doing good for others, you see. So the different modes of nature. So all of that is part of our mentality and intelligence that we developed. The soul is simply riding along, and the super soul is giving consciousness, giving instruction how you can achieve your goals. Even if it's a goal that's not good for you, that intelligence ultimately has to come from the super soul. Just like people ask, well, why would we come here? You know, why would we leave? And why did Krishna let us leave? Why didn't, you know, we had this impulse to leave the spiritual world. Why did he just lock us up for a while till we got, you know. But that's not how the spiritual world works. It all is based on, you know, the mutual desires. The living entities who are there, they desire to serve Krishna out of their own free will, and so they get the reciprocation of Krishna's love. It can't be any coercion. It's a place. Did you need to ask me something?
No, I just wanted to glorify you.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm ready.
I first met Dravida like 42 years ago when I was a little boy. I was playing Redondo for him in Miami Temple. But he's always been the same pure devotee. He looked the same, always the same. Always wonderful, always giving lectures, expert in Sanskrit.
Okay, now I have to put you to that. I bold me, mine. No, don't worry, I'll pay you back. You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm just kidding. I do. Yeah, and his mother was a saint. I'm telling you, his mother, Samapriya, she pioneered the prison ministry. Are you aware of the prison ministry? Yeah, that to send books and literature to prisoners and into prisons and to get contact people who become interested. They can in turn get other prisoners interested. It's a whole thing now. There's one sannyasi. I forget his name now, but he specializes in that. He likes to go visit the prisoners and even initiate some prisoners as devotees. And they get out, they come to the temples and things like that. So his mother pioneered that, and even when she was, you know, she had pancreatic cancer eventually, but even then she was struggling to send the books out and engage people. It was very wonderful. And so he's gotten some of her good qualities also. So, back to the verse. So Krishna is saying that, okay, it's not so easy to understand the soul, because it's not, you can't see, the soul is too small, and it's not immediately evident, you know. And so therefore he's saying how amazing it is and difficult to understand. But this is why, like the, you know, the how should I say, the entry card into really entering, as Prabhupada, the house of bhakti, you know, is to have faith in the words of the acharyas, the spiritual masters, and in the words of Krishna. This is what's so wonderful about the Bhagavad Gita, and especially Bhagavad Gita as it is, without distortion, and that we're hearing actually the words of Krishna. Even the Sanskrit is there, but nicely translated by Srila Prabhupada. And so that rather than, you know, approach the Bhagavad Gita with our preconceptions, well, so that's too much. I can't believe that, you know. No, we have to take and find and learn how it can be true if we through the purport and so forth. So Prabhupada is giving us, and you know, but it's hard because you'll find so many speculations and people trying to use the Bhagavad Gita for their own purposes. Maybe some of you may not know the history, but Prabhupada was a staunch follower of Mahatma Gandhi and the independence movement. And of course he was raised as a Vaishnava, but he got involved, and even you could even tell just by the clothes he's wearing, because it was all a home stitching, you know, a home weaving, like that Gandhi said. Well, this way we'll get free from the coercion of the UK, of the England, right? All the cloth has to be bought from England, you know. So, no, we just get our little, what is it called, the spinning machine? Yeah. And we'll weave our own cloth, or our own, in this way. And so that was a symbol for Mahatma Gandhi, independence. So Prabhupada was staunchly involved, and then he met his spiritual master. There's a whole story like that about it. He had so many friends, and one said, "Oh, you should come to see this sadhu," But then, no, I've seen so many. My father was so pious. If someone just came to the door with the orange cloth, he would invite him in for lunch, And he saw that many of them was just like a profession. He saw one fellow, he put on the sannyas robes, and then he went out to beg, and then he took them off and then went home, And so he didn't have much faith in it. So he was trying, no, I've seen so many. No, this is one special, you come. So finally he got him to come up to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And practically he could see, this, he was serious. And Prabhupada, so they were offering their obeisances. And even before they got up, he said, oh, these young, intelligent, college-educated men, said, you're intelligent, you should preach this Lord Chaitanya's mission all over the world. And Prabhupada, he recounted this meeting, and he said, even before we even introduced ourselves, he was already giving me the assignment, to preach. So Prabhupada had a debate with him, a little debate, but India is under the yoke of the English, until we get our independence. He said, no, the Krishna consciousness is more important than any of that. It's so urgent that we should go out anyway. So Prabhupada was defeated. He had never been defeated before. He was such a great debater, but he was defeated. But he said, "I liked it," and he accepted Bhaktisiddhanta as a spiritual master in his heart. And later he was, formally initiated, of course. So he saw what a good writer Prabhupada was. Abhay Charan was, and he encouraged him to write in English. And eventually he began publishing the Bhakti Gita magazine in English. And he was encouraged by a friend. These magazines, people will read them and they'll throw them away. If you write a book, if you a hardback book, it'll stay permanently. So he said, okay, and he started doing the Bhagavatam, the first canon of the Bhagavatam. And when he added with great effort, he had no money. He had, he finally got one volume published, and he used that to raise more money for this. It took him 4 years to publish the 3 volumes of the first canon. But once he had that, he was almost 69. He was 68 years old. And he said, well, now or never. I got to go abroad. So he was able to get... You okay, Kathy? Someone dropped something on the altar. It was the end. No, the end is not... No, it's So he felt, now I have the ammunition, And so he was able to beg a free passage to America from a friend, a devotee, He had to convince her. She said, no, Swami, you're too old. You're going to die over there. I'm not going to give you a pass. So he did like a sit-in. You know what a sit-in? He just sat on her porch, the steps to her office, and he was chanting. And finally she invited him in and said, you have to give me, I said, okay. And that was very important. Anyway, it's a wonderful story. And here Prabhupada is giving us the, how Krishna is saying it's hard to understand or believe in the soul with our mentality, our materialist mentality. But some of the I remember that verse that we read. You remember the Dehinosmin yata dehi komaram yovanam jada. That this is something we can all relate to, if you really think about it. Just as the child from boyhood to youth to old age, the body is constantly changing. It's growing. It's transforming. But you're still the same person. What's the same about you? My consciousness, right? Yes. And what's the source of the consciousness is the soul. So that's an intuitive way that you can start to think, yeah, it makes sense that there's a soul. And then we have, I remember when we were in the 70s, we did a couple of articles in Bhakti Gita. I used to work on that magazine, about this one professor, Ian Stevenson, I think it was, who was a psychologist and everything. Some university in the South, I forget what it was, Virginia maybe. But he had heard and did some about young children, especially in India, but not solely in India, who sometimes recounted it, saying that they had, previous memories from previous lives. And the parents would think, well, that sounds pretty weird, that you'll go out of it, But especially in India, it seemed to happen more. And so he did investigation. He actually went there and found a few of them. And then he went to the town that they said they had been part of. And sure enough, you know, there was, in other words, it checked out. And they were remembering things from previous lives. So, and that is a, you know, very good indication of transmigration of the soul. So anyway, these things, it's amazing if you just take your ordinary consciousness and try to think of the soul. But when you hear about these empirical things that happen, and also that this is accepted by all these great acharyas and things, then it becomes more you know, believable. And when you act on that, and you chant and you hear more and more and you feel, yes, that makes perfect sense. And then you think, well, I'm so fortunate to have met, you know, these devotees and did this devotional service, because now I understand that I was headed toward a very dark future if I'm just leading my ordinary life in this modern Kali Yuga Western world, you know. So this is great mercy, actually. Okay, it's very hard to understand. Let's see what Krishna says next. Dehi nityam avadyoyam Dehi sarvasya bharata Tasmat sarvani bhutani Natvam shojitamarhasi. O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore you need not grieve for any living being. Purport. The Lord now concludes the chapter of instructions. So this is the final verse on the soul, specifically. The Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher, Bhishma and Drona, will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body, not that there is no such thing as a soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. Now, I just want to share with you, in my work for the BBT, I happen to be reviewing this chapter, and we're trying to get out any small little wrinkles that may still be there. So one of those wrinkles is this word, any living being. Now, Prabhupada originally said living entities. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living entities. Well, maybe we could make it living entity, you know. But the problem with that is that living entity almost always means the soul. But Arjuna is not grieving for the soul. He's really grieving for the body, you know, of Bhishma Dev and so forth. And so the word is bhutani, you know, in the word by words. Now look at what the meaning is. Bhutani, living entities that are born. Well, wait a minute. We just learned that the living entity is not born. No birth or death, right? So this can't be your ordinary meaning of living entity. So that's why they made it living being. Now living being also usually means the soul, but often means the soul in the combination with the body. Just like it is said that Lord Brahma is the first living being in the universe. You know, he's the original person who's the soul in a body. Very special body. He's got 4 heads, and you know he lives for an unbelievably long time. But still, he's like one of us in that regard. So therefore, this was changed from living entity to living being, and then we thought, well, we should come back to living entity, because Prabhupada said living entities, but I think it should stay as living being, or maybe become just, you should not grieve for anyone. Because as soon as you say anyone, it means, yeah, a person who has an embodied, a soul and a body, you know. Anyway, we'll discuss it, but that's just to let you know some of the things that happened with the editing. Okay, so you shouldn't grieve. That's the whole point. You shouldn't hesitate to fight the battle, even though it may result in the apparent death of your beloved teacher and grandfather. Swadharmam apichaveksha navikampitum arhasi dharm yadhi yuddacheyonyat Kshatriyasya na vidyate. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Purport. Out of the 4 orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration is called a Kshatriya. Now these 4 orders, this is Varnashram. So you have these 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. And the 4 social orders are the Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So Arjuna is a Kshatriya, so he has a certain duty. One who gives protection from harm is called a Kshatriya. Trayate, to give protection from Chat. Chat is harm, to protect from harm. That's the Kshatriya's basic function. The Kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system has been followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriya kings of Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are specifically trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyas or renunciation. Nonviolence in politics may be a diplomacy, but it is never a factor or principle. In the religious law books, it is stated, and we're going to put a time out on that as I turn off this heat, because I don't think anyone else is here who has experience turning the heat off. Oh. Mahima knows that. You know how to do it?
No, I'll figure it out.
No, you won't. You can watch me. You get trained up to it. So you just practice and light it on. And then you want to go to the system and pull it off. Done. And the hard part is that it doesn't turn it right away. So you have to wait.
I had it successfully. Tap the screen, system, off, and then wait 2 minutes.
You'll see it'll go off in a couple of minutes. All right. So, translation. No, not translate. We're doing the Sanskrit here? Okay. Ahaveshu mato nyonyam jighang santo mahi chitaha yudhamana param shaktya swargam yant japaran mukhaha yaggeshu pashavo brahman hanyante satatam dijai sanskrita kilamantraischa tepi swargam avapnuvan. Right, doesn't say exactly where this quote is from, but in the battlefield, the king or Kshatriya, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving the heavenly planets after death, as the Brahmins also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Quote, unquote. Therefore, killing on the battlefield on religious principles and killing animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence, because everyone is benefited by the religious principles involved. The animal sacrifice gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another. And the Kshatriyas killed on the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmins who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are 2 kinds of swadharmas, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmins and Kshatriyas respectively, and these duties are unavoidable. Such swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, swadharma is called varnashram dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of varnashram dharma, or specific duties in terms of specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action, in accordance with the orders of higher authorities, serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. So this is a little bit of insight into the Varnashram system. There'll be more of that later. 7th chapter, I think. And Varna and ashram. So the Varna is like the social order, is like what your aptitude. I remember when I was a kid, several grades we'd get aptitude tests. Meaning, well, what, you know, are you good with your hands? You know, we had shop. I was never very good in shop, where we learned to cut wood and, you know, practical things like that. I never got into like working on cars, you know. Some of my friends did that, but it just wasn't my thing. And to this day, if my car breaks down, I just open the hood and look at it, but I don't know what I have no idea what to do. Anyway, I don't drive very much anymore. So, but each of us has a certain aptitude according to the modes of nature, previous karma, like that. And if we're properly engaged, then that's you feel good doing that. Just like my mother was a reading teacher, and you know, I got good grades in school, you know. So when I joined the movement, it was very good fortune or Krishna's arrangement that I joined in the one temple in the world where the books were being produced, the English books were being produced. And after a few months, I was reading the Krishna book, you know. My job, you know, they didn't give you an aptitude test, you know. And so I was spending 3 hours on the street chanting Hare Krishna, which I was very happy to do. But then when I was, you know, my service, my practical service, was filling these little bottles with scented oil that then would be part of the spiritual sky incense. There was a little business that was started on, Prabhupada approved of it. And we had little clients on Long Island and places we would buy incense, you know, and stuff like that. So I was filling the oil bottles. And then I'm reading Krishna book and I say, you know, Radha Ballabha, he was the manager of the press, you know. I said, I'm finding all these mistakes in the, you know, little mistakes in the Krishna book, spelling mistakes and things like that. Oh, really? You know, we're going to reprint soon. So here, take this red pen. They didn't give me an office. They didn't give me a time. They didn't give me a desk, nothing. Just here's the red pen. And when you get a chance, mark it up and you see what you can find. So a month or two later, I came back with the book and I said, well, here it is. You know, he said, oh, this is very good. So we have to try to get you now engaged in the press work. And it wasn't long before that was my main service, proofreading, not editing, but proofreading. And I always remember the first thing I proofread was the battle of Hiranyaksha and the boy incarnation, right? Varaha. That was very exciting, the third canto. And then the teachings of Kapila Dev in the end of the third canto. That was the first time I went to India. I took one book. We had, at that time, the Bhagavatam was being published in 400-page books. And so the third canto was 4 volumes. The fourth canto was 4 volumes. So I took that last volume, which had all those teachings. That was the one book I took to India when I was reading on the plane and everything. Fascinating teachings of Kapila Dev to his mother. So that, and then I've, you know, been very, because it's kind of my aptitude to do all this fine little work with English. So I've been very happy doing that for, you know, since 1973, 52 years. Actually, it'll be 52 years tomorrow when I moved into the temple. So it's kind of an important date for me. Anyway.
What's the difference between proofreading and editing?
Oh, well, proofreading means you're looking for things like spelling errors, or is this comment supposed to be italic or not? You know, I mean, little stuff like that. You're not really looking at, you know, maybe this should be worded in another way. You know, it's like after the editor gets to it, this is a final polish, you see? And there was a lot of Sanskrit stuff. I wouldn't know any Sanskrit, but I would check, you know, and I'd say, well, this doesn't seem to you know, be right, you know, and I would ask the Sanskrit guys, you know. So, yeah, proofreading is called copy editing, but it's not editing like an actual, you know, editor does. He looks through the whole sentence structure and like this whole thing I mentioned about not grieve for any living being. Well, that works because we changed it from living entity. Living entity almost always means the soul. But then Prabhupada says in the purport, no, it's Bhutani, living entities who are born. Wait a minute, we just learned that the living entity is never born, you see. So it's like, so that you have to watch for that kind of stuff and iron out any little anomalies that make it. I'll give you an example. In chapter 4, maybe I can find it, near the beginning, Krishna is speaking about his, why he comes, Advent, right? why he comes and how he comes. Oh yeah, and in page 187, you'll find to text 5, Krishna is saying, and many births I have had, right? The translation at the bottom of 186, the personality of God has said, many births, both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Then Prabhupada quotes a verse from the Brahma Samhita. Actually quotes 2 of them, but the first one is from 533, Advaitam Achyutam Anadam Ananta Rupam, like that. Then he gives the translation. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. Now, Srila Prabhupada typed out these early chapters. He typed it out on his own typewriter with 2 fingers, you know. And so it was a little slower. But then after a while, they bought him a dictaphone. You know, you dictate a type and then someone types it up. And that speeded everything up. But it also created a problem because you had the guy who was hearing the Prabhupada dictation. He can't understand the Sanskrit, you know, so it made it faster, but also a little more difficult. So anyway, Prabhupada was typing this, and this is a fact. You know, he's typing, and he left out one word in the last sentence. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually understood by even the best usually understood by the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. Now, because I knew that, and the Sanskrit is right there, Vedeshu Durlabham are usually not understood, right? By even the best Vedic scholars. Just by studying the Vedas, you're not going to understand Krishna. But by Atma Bhaktim, by sincere service, then he's easy to understand. He reveals from within, you see? So that word not had been, Prabhupada left the word not out in the typing. We have the original manuscript. So I added the word not and even. Otherwise we had are usually understood by the best Vedic scholars. And even the main editor, I mean, Hayagriva didn't catch it, and Jayavada Swami didn't catch it. So this was one of my, I remember it, you know, one of my memorable fixes. Because it's just the opposite, you know what I'm saying? 180 degrees, you know, yeah. And there's some other things I could show you as we go on, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's what editing is. Editing is more, you have to know more to do editing than copy editing, than proofreading. Proofreading, you know, it's a very important function. And that's how I started, and usually the proofreaders, they graduate into editing after a while. And that's what I did for some time. Okay, so that we did 32, right? No, we didn't do 32. We did 31. Okay. Swadharma, the Swadharma. Okay. All right, 32. Yadrichaya chopapannam swagadvaram apapatam sukhina chatraya parta labante yuddhamidrisham. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Purport. As supreme teacher of the world, Lord Krishna condemns the attitude of Arjuna, who said, quote, I do not find any good in this fighting. It will cause perpetual habitation in hell. Close quote. Such statements by Arjuna were due to ignorance only. He wanted to become nonviolent in the discharge of his specific duty. For a Kshatriya to be on the battlefield and to become nonviolent is a philosophy of fools. In the Parashara Smriti, or religious codes made by Parashara, the great sage and father of Vyasadeva, it is stated, Kshatriyo hi praja rakshan shastrapani padandigan nirjitya parasainyadi chitim dharmena palayet. The Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties, and for that reason, he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus, with religious principles, he should rule over the world. Parashara Smriti 161. Considering all aspects, Arjuna had no reason to refrain from fighting. If he should conquer his enemies, he would enjoy the kingdom. And if he should die in the battle, he would be elevated to the heavenly planets, whose doors were wide open to him. Fighting would be for his benefit in either case. So it was a no-lose situation, you know. Of course, Arjuna wasn't really interested in going to the heavenly planets. You know, he's headed back to the spiritual world eventually. But, so Krishna is giving from all different sides why he should fight. And so we'll proceed. There'll be some more very important instruction in this chapter. But now we've come to that time where I think I should give you some poetry. And these gentlemen haven't heard my rendition of. Have you ever heard of the Kevalashtaka? No. 8 verses about the holy name. Now this Kevalashtaka has been well known for years, and no one ever knew who wrote it. You know, it was always Kevalashtaka by some anonymous author. But then we discovered that it was written by a dear associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He wasn't a disciple, but he was a sannyasi. Oh boy, my mind is going blank exactly what his name is, but he wrote 100 verses, and apparently, maybe it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur, took out these 8, and so they're kind of well known. So I'm going to share these with you. I think we have time. He says, Modaram Modarebhyopi, Mangalebhyopi Mangalam, Pavanam Pavanebhyopi, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Now, you know, you've heard that. So that last line is from that famous verse, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Kevalam. So what he says there is, of sweet things, it's the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of things that purify, it purifies most powerfully. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Abrahma stamba paryantam, sarvam mayamayam jagat, satyam satyam punak satyam, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. From Brahma's realm atop the sky, down to the lowly grass, illusion reigns in Maya Devi's treacherous morass. The truth, the only truth, the name of Shri Hari. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Okay. Saguru sapitachapi samata bandhavopisar shikshyeche sada smartam Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. He's the father, he's the guru, he's the father, he's the friend most true. And she's the real mother, who most kindly teaches you to always chant and hear the holy name of Shri Hari. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Now this next verse is my favorite. Nikshvase nahi vishvaso kadarudho bhavishyati kirtaneya matha balyad Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or we're in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Then it says, Hari sada vasit tatra yatra bhagavatajana gayanti bhakti bhavena Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Lord Shri Hari forever dwells wherever devotees, whose hearts are fixed on him and free of all impurities, uplift their voices high and sing his name in ecstasy. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. And he says, Oho dukkam mahadukkam dukkha dukkaram yata kachatam visutam ratna Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Alas, what sorrow, what great pain, the worst calamity for people to forget the holy name of Shri Hari. Although the name's a priceless gem, mere broken glass they see. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Just fill your ears, just fill them with the name of Shri Hari. Just chant the name with all sincerity. Just sing the name, just sing the holy name eternally. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Then it says, oh. No, we did that one. Oh, the Sanskrit is leaving me. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Trinikritikagat Sarvam, Sarvam, Krinitritikasam Rajate Sakalopadi, Chadanandamayam Shuddham, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Okay. It makes this world appear like bits of straw upon the ground. Resplendently it reigns supreme, divinity and sound. It's filled with transcendental bliss and peerless purity. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. So I added a 9th verse because he wrote 100 and somebody probably Bhaktivinoda got to that. Inspired to glorify, now I remembered his name, part of the poem. Inspired to glorify the holy name of Shri Hari, Shri Nilakanta Goswami. Shri Nilakanta wrote this hymn in Sanskrit poetry. I pray that those who hear this lowly version made by me will chant the holy name of Shri Hari in ecstasy. Hare Krishna. So now let's chant the holy name of Shri Hari in ecstasy.